Two experts in ICF.
Yeah.
Decades of experience.
Uh-huh.
One podcast.
Yeah.
Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, cause really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build with ICF podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the girl boss, and she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build with ICF podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt, yeah.
Well, today I'm not sitting across the desk from you. Today I'm in a totally different zip code, a couple hours away for some meetings.
Yeah. So now if you guys hear her, she doesn't sound as amazing as Michael and I. It's because she's talking on her laptop on the road somewhere. And so that's why. But yeah, we're here with the episode 73.
Yeah. And figuring it out even with technical difficulties. You know, my AirPods didn't want to connect, so I'm just using my laptop speakers, and I've been saying for a bit I need a new laptop, so I guess sooner it's going to happen, or going to happen sooner than later now, because
it's pushing to get you the new laptop. So I think that's probably good. And that's why you're down in the big city. That's why you're not up here in the mountains where I'm at. And so you could go buy a laptop, I guess. So kind of exciting. We've actually been talking about this for a little bit with with our new guest this time. We've got Michael Smith with Castle Rock. Well, I keep saying Castle Rock, and it's not Castle Rock. Castle House Distributors. So if I say that, I'm just going to preface ahead of time. If I say that, I mean Castle House. But Castle House Distributors out of Sacramento, California, and been excited. We're working on a few different things with Michael, and so we're going to be getting together here this next week at PCBC. So this is a great lead into it to get our episode in here finally to talk with you. So Michael, wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast. Welcome to the Built ICF podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I've been looking forward to this.
So let's just start out like we do. Let's start out with a little bit of, tell us about who you are and kind of your background and how you stumbled into this ICF world and have recently, become, in the position you're at Castle House.
Gladly. So Northern California, born and raised. I grew up in the concrete industry, actually driving mixers in my 20s. So I've come up through some technology side of it, some sales side of it, a lot of the equipment side of it. So spent a lot of time boots on the ground, job sites, spent some time summer laser screeds doing flat slabs, ended up going over to Cemex, and I worked for Cemex on a team that did a lot of education and promotion for sustainability, new technologies, things of that nature. Probably about 3 years ago, here in Northern California, obviously with the fires, so many people losing their homes, it was affecting family members of mine. And I just really thought, being a concrete guy, there's got to be a better solution, and we've got to be able to do something, instead of putting fuel in the path of a future fire and building everything back just like it was, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I started doing a lot of in my personal time research. I have a 3D printer at home, so I even connected with some 3D concrete printing companies and explored those. And I think they're amazing, but I just didn't feel they were, production ready. Yes, you can build homes, you can do things, but for a homeowner, the changes of having to use concrete anchors to hang pictures just doesn't seem appealing to me. The idea of being able to, yes, I'm 50. I'll be 56 this year, but I can still get up in the attic and run cables down through my walls if I need to, so on. I'm used to being able to do things to my house. And so 3D concrete printing, while it's amazing, it wasn't connecting for me. And that's when, I'm now a past president for ACI Northern California, Western Nevada. I was the sitting president at the time, and I also chair the awards committee. one of the projects submitted was an ICF home in Santa Rosa in the fire scar. I had a chance to go up and tour the home. And, I knew ICF 20 plus years ago, but it was always just high end custom homes because it was pricey. Well, I'm talking to the owners and I find out that what they built compared to what their neighbors built in stick, price per square foot ended up being incredibly comparable. One was a 7,000 square foot home, one was a 59 or 5,800 square foot home. And when you broke it down for what each of them paid, I don't know why anybody's building in stick because they can't get insurance other than the Cal Fair plan. And if you're not in California, California provided what's called a Cal Fair plan that people affected by the fire that have to go on the Cal Fair plan call it the Cal Unfair plan. It's usually 3 to 4 times more expensive, and it doesn't cover hardly anything. So, it's what the state capital is calling an insurance crisis here in the state of California. So, all these factors really just kept me diving into what is a solution. And after touring that home, I started getting plugged in with some ICF builders, some of the producers. Obviously, I'm plugged in with Nadura, but I was also connected with Build Block and Fox, IntegraSpec. The home in Santa Rosa was IntegraSpec. And, I just really started seeing that we can build a home cost effectively that insurance companies will insure even in a fire scar. And, the turning point for me was when I was up in Paradise, touring homes in Paradise. Two things came out of that. One, my wife was with me, and this is probably one of my favorite memories. We pulled up to the first house, and she looks at it and goes, "That's not a concrete home." And I told her, "It's the address. It's supposed to be a concrete home. I'm going to assume it is." And I'd already seen ICF homes, so I knew what to expect, but she's looking at it going, "No, that's a regular home." And so we go inside. She's literally knocking on walls. And I had to go out in the garage and yell because the garage, is separated by an ICF wall and yell before she realized the soundproofing so on. Like that has to be a concrete wall because you would hear me here at our house. You'd hear
Right.
me yelling in the garage. And so she, as soon as we walked out of that house, she's like, "If we buy a new house or build, we're doing ICF." She's like, "I was in that house and was just so blown away and I felt secure. I felt safe." She's like, "Why aren't we doing this?" And so even though she thinks I should be doing more, I am pedal to the floor on out promoting ICF. And the second thing that was the real eye turner, Melissa Schuster, city councilwoman for Paradise, former city councilwoman, lost everything in the fires. They had a nice venue that was a wedding venue. They had this huge koi fish pond. They have this underground bar that's amazing. They had this big barn. They lost it all, their house, everything. They rebuilt the house in ICF. They rebuilt the barn as a distillery. They'd always planned on converting the barn to a distillery at some point. They named the barn Burt Barn Distillery, which I thought is perfect. Their spirits the spirits line is called Embers to Eden. So, I mean, she's a wonderful woman. It just has a passion for being, she's going to survive. She's going to make everything work and she will find a way. And she did. And she ended up at 2,200 square foot, 2-story home. Nothing special. It's just her and her husband. And the Cal Fair plan was $7,100 for insurance, which is outrageous. She's a smart woman too. She invited insurance companies out for a gin and vodka tasting, free, complimentary. Their whiskey wasn't aged yet. And did a house tour while they were there. Mercury found out it was ICF, offered her $2,300. A $4,800 savings. I don't know about you, but that would make a huge difference for our lifestyle. So when we came back from Paradise, I told my wife, this is what California needs. This is what, I have family, two families, two of our families lost their homes, both rebuilt and ended up moving out of state. My little sister is on 11 acres up by Campfire West Lake here where we grew up. And her insurance company was going to drop her. Her property's probably, I don't know, we're 700,000 and she owed 125. And if she can't get insurance, they're going to foreclose. Well, she's got to go on Cal Fair, but she can't afford it. She lost her husband 6-7 years ago. And so she's a single income. Also, by the way, my little sister, 5 foot tall, tiny little thing. She has cattle. She has chickens, an orchard, dogs, and a donkey. And she still works a full-time job. And I don't know how she makes it all happen, but she has no quit in her. And to see this insurance crisis put her in a situation where she can't afford CalFare and now she might lose her home to foreclosure, that really lit a fire under me. And that, that made it personal in a big way. So there's got to be a better way to do things. And that really led me to really push for ICF. And I started speaking at universities on it. I spoke at UCLA with Build Block at their event. I spoke at CalSEMA and really started promoting it. And that was, became my passion. Unfortunately, Cemex had a change and our entire department across the country was cut. Business decision. Cemex was an incredible company to work for. No hard feelings at all. Still very plugged in. But that led me to look for new opportunities. And getting this opportunity with Castle House, they offered me a vice president role to take over the distribution side. But the key focus of me taking over the distribution side was promotion and education of ICF. So they do doors, windows, everything to build a house, and then ICF block as well. And so it's been a great fit. I've been there, a little over 2 months now, and it's been pedal to the metal. So it's been pretty incredible.
And they're a Nudura dealer, right? That's what they
Correct. We're a
do.
Nudura dealership.
So yeah, great company to be set up with to do that. They can definitely they know how to work with those big distributors in those areas. And you guys cover all Northern California, Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, you said?
And Hawaii.
Well, there's where you want to go. That's where you want to be selling ICF. That's the trick, is you go there in the wintertime and sell ICF over there, then seasonal. But it's interesting when I hear distributors and first of all, thank you guys for being WICFA members. You guys are WICFA members of the World Insulated Concrete Forum Association, as is Nudura. So thank you for that support. I love hearing that we're, like I said, people with passion. That's how this whole thing drives. I always am bummed a little bit when when it has to come from a bad experience that somebody gets, like I said, your passion of, how it affected you personally and in your family. And I see that because I too spent a ton of time in Paradise. I spent a ton of time, and all around different fires in California over the last 25 years. I've made a trip down the Palisades already and probably be making more, but you hear people that have these experiences, and that's where this creates this, passion and desire to want to get involved with ICF. And so that's, like I said, I hate that it's a bad thing that has to push that, but it's obviously exponentially increased your desire to get it out there. So kudos to you, and that's awesome. But it's interesting with from a Castle House standpoint, where you guys have, I talk about all the time. I managed the Western 13 states for a lot of years, and we had, everywhere I went, I had a different reason to sell ICF. Right? Everybody had something different. You guys have a really unique setup with the areas you cover because of seismic in California, fire obviously in California, heat in Arizona, cold in Utah. It's an amazing combination of all the different aspects of why we can use ICF for all these different things. And it's a big part of what we see out there with everybody. So it's really, to me, that's an interesting thing that makes it very versatile product for you guys. And I know you sell a lot of stuff. Castle House does a lot of really cool products. I was looking through everything. You guys do everything to build a house, full line supplier, but have really started making a name for yourself as an ICF company out there too. So, and I'm only going to get more with your involvement for sure. So,
well, I'll say that. Oh, I'm sorry, Heather, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I love caring, like when you took your wife to a concrete house. And I think that it's what a lot of people think. They think concrete house equals bunker, square, cold, all these things that ICF definitely is not and does not have to be. Yes, bunkers are built out of ICF. There's been lots of them built for the military because of different reasons, ballistics testing and all that kind of stuff. But in building and in designing homes for ICF, we tell our clients we're limited only by your imagination and your budget. We can make that ICF house. Nobody will know it's an ICF house from the outside. And it's so crazy to have them come in. And, one of the things that we used to do is when we would build in a community and we would be competing with stick frame houses around us. While people were inside of the ICF home, we would set off some of the car alarms outside, and from inside our house, you couldn't hear it. And you would walk out and you would hear it, and then you would go into the stick frame house next door and you would still hear it as though you're outside. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, it is so quiet. But I love exactly what you said, when you and your wife went and walked through there, just because that's something that everybody really, until they experience it, I think they have a preconceived notion about it. Going in.
100%. So I do a lot of work at the state capitol also, and Assemblywoman Laura Davies, I think it's District 73, and we're podcast 73. Imagine that.
Hey, perfect.
So she's down in the San Juan Capistrano area. We set up a site visit on a construction site, and then about a mile away, a completed home. And they had the same reaction, exactly what you're describing, Heather. They could not believe, that the home they were in was what they just witnessed under construction, because it looks like a regular home. Just they couldn't tell the difference. And then, tying that into something Trevor was talking about, I'm constantly reminded, I'm focused on the insurance crisis. I'm focused on building homes that people can actually insure. And that's a lot of the work I'm doing, is focused on communities that have been devastated, are struggling to recover from that, because if you want to build a home and stick, you're not going to be able to insure it, so you've got to pay for it outright. You can't finance it. If you don't get enough money from your insurance company to rebuild in full cost, it's coming out of your pocket, because you're not going to be able to insure it unless you go on Cal Fair, which again we know is not very fair. And that's not a knock on California. It's they're making an effort, but nothing government does is going to be very efficient. We all know this. It's unfortunate, but I'm so focused on the insurance side of it that sometimes, and the energy saving side, that I forget some of the other benefits. And we're down in the Coachella Valley doing a project, a 27,000 square foot mansion, high end. It's got a basement. They can only do single story, so it's got this massive basement. And I'm looking at this thinking it makes perfect sense. You're in the desert. You're going to have a house that's going to stay so much cooler, requires so much less AC. I mean, it's an above ground cave, especially since you have the basement aspect built into it as well. I mean, this is the perfect solution. And it didn't dawn on me until Coachella was actually running and they flew the drone up, and you could actually see Coachella taking place and hear the music that, they're also not going to be disturbed, if they don't want to be, by all the concerts, Stagecoach, Coachella, everything, because of the soundproofing. I hadn't even considered that aspect. And you have to look at the neighborhood they're in. There's a bunch of very large mansions right around them. And a lot of these are to have events and host and have live music. Well, this is another perfect reason for ICF, because they don't have to be disturbed if they don't want to. They can go out on their patio and enjoy it if they want to, or they can stay inside and not even know what's going on. So, all these different environments, all these different climates, all these different, benefits, I often forget when I'm focused on insurance and energy, and then something happens and I'm reminded, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's another box check that I keep forgetting about.
Yeah, 100%. And insurance is like, we're seeing it everywhere. Affordability is a huge issue, not just in California or in Idaho, but all across the country. And when you look at insurance rates, adding $1,000, $2,000 and more per month, or even not being able to get insurance. Maybe they could buy the house, but then they can't get insurance. That's a huge problem. And it adds to the affordability issue. I mean, I know we fought our insurance company because we live in a fire zone, and they tried to triple
Unknown caller.
Whoa.
Wow. That was, sorry. Bluetooth. Heather's Bluetoothed into the board, and I just got another call, so didn't know that was going to happen.
Oh,
There's a
awesome.
first on the podcast. Now we know that happens.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it actually makes it through the podcast, or
Good Lord. Yeah. Wow.
You can always have some fun with it.
Yeah. Keep it real.
So we fought our insurance company and showed them, what our house was made of, sent in pictures during construction, sent them all the technical specs on it, and showed the fireproofness of it. And we actually ended up seeing a decrease in our homeowners insurance, which was crazy.
Not a surprise.
Then this year we got a renewal, And I was worried we were going to have to go through this process of fighting it every single year. And second year, this year, on the renewal, we didn't have to fight it. It went up just a small amount for, inflation. Everything is going up. So, it wasn't something that was huge for us again. But 3 of our neighbors are all now self-insured because they lost insurance,
Right.
which is super scary.
Mhm.
Like, Idaho doesn't have a plan. At least California is doing something to try to
Right.
come up with a solution, but it's not a great solution for
No.
there.
It might work for some people. For others, just it puts you further in the hole. Because unfortunately, I look at California. We're second, at least last I checked. We're second in the nation for median home price. We're second in the nation, second from the bottom. Sorry, second worst. Second worst on home ownership, meaning the percentage of homes that the people living in them own it.
Mhm.
Our home ownership is declining. That percentage is about to drop below 50% in California, and that's the wrong direction. And I look at the next generation coming out of college trying to buy a home. It's next to impossible. So there's so many issues that we face, but highlighting the benefits that ICF brings to actually fix these problems without needing government intervention, without needing, tax benefits, without any of that, just the product itself solves so many of these problems. And I think, some of the things I'm putting campaigns together on and working on, low income housing should be ICF because these people have to pay energy bills, you know,
Yes.
and these energy bills are outrageous. You know, my last presentation that I gave, I highlighted in a 2.5 year period, 9 energy price hikes in that time period. And it was an energy price hike of about 65%.
Wow.
And that's insane. Well, if you build low income housing in ICF, like I don't think we should build low income housing out of anything other than ICF because you're putting somebody in a low income housing because they're financially challenged.
Mhm.
And if you're putting them in a home, but then they have to pay $800 to $1,200 a month in energy bills, you're not helping them. You're
Right.
just, putting them in a situation where they're going to still struggle to put food on the table and to buy clothes. So I look at those things. I look at hotels. I mean, business owners, you want to build hotels. That is ideal. You will save the energy money in your pocket because you can still compete with local hotels on rates, so on, but you won't be paying the energy costs they're paying. There's so many advantages. And the one that's killing me right now, this one, again, bureaucracies make things difficult. DSA, Department of State Architect, their interpretation for ICF. Across the country, you have net neutral schools built in ICF. In California, you have 0. And one of the roadblocks is DSA interprets ACI, and I will fight this to my dying day. ACI's recommendation for concrete walls is 4-foot lifts per hour so that you get some time for the concrete to get a little set to it, but you still get consolidation. So when the next lift goes on, you can intermingle the two. But you also aren't going so deep that you can't get good consolidation. Because if you try to consolidate, 12 foot at one time, that vibrator is going to be too long in the upper portion. So you're going to get segregation. So, I understand ACI's recommendation as far as 4-foot lifts per hour. Well, DSA interprets that as 4 foot per day,
Oh,
meaning you're going to have cold joints every 4 foot through those walls, and you're also going to increase the cost of build. And it kills me because ACI's recommendations, right where it says 4-foot lifts, it also says avoiding cold joints. But DSA's requirement ensures you're going to have
It
cold joints.
guarantees
every 4
floor,
feet.
cold joints.
I don't get it. It's frustrating. It's a battle I will probably never win, but I'm a United States Marine, and all I know is I'm going to fight that battle. And I tell people sometimes I'm just too stupid to quit. So
No, I think there, and a lot of that is, and I mean, I'm going to plug, WICFA here because that's a lot of why we're doing what we're doing with the World Insulated Concrete Forum Association is we're really trying to just educate people. I beat the word educate to death. It's definitely one of my bingo card words because it's something that we're just out there doing. I mean, I was having this conversation with somebody else the other day. I said, I don't think I'm they're like, "Oh, you're an ICF sales guy. You're really good at selling ICF." I go, "I don't think I do. I don't think I sell ICF. I think I educate people about ICF, and then they buy it, which I guess could be turned into a sale necessarily." So I understand where that comes from, but for the most part, all I'm trying to do is like educate people on this, and it's just little things like that you find out about. And to me, that's and I'll get more information from you on this because I'd love to send a letter from WICFA, to these people and say, "Hey, I had a guest on. We talked about this. I just want to clarify. Is there anything we can do to help clarify this to you, and how this works?" Because I think we have the backing of the National Ready Mix Concrete Association is one of our partners. They're a concrete partner, and we couldn't do it without our concrete partners. While I'm on that, that's National Ready Mix Concrete Association, the ICFMA, the Insulated Concrete Form Manufacturers Association, and the NHB, the National Association of Home Builders, our three major concrete sponsors. And without them, we couldn't do all this for WICFA. They'd be a great resource for us to reach out, and I know we could tap into that. And probably get a letter from everybody from NHB, ICFMA, and the NRMCA to send and get these guys straightened out a little bit. And like I said, and sometimes I think trust me, over the years, I've ran into guys that are just negative or hard to deal with, or they're uneducated or even ignorant in some ways. But most of the time I run into people, they just don't know. They just don't understand what they don't understand. They don't know what they don't know. And so we're looking at it going, okay, this is what this is what we got to do. And more times than not, I've watched their face turn and they go, yeah, I guess we didn't think of it that way. We'll change that. So I think that's something that we can dive into. Going back to the affordability thing, another conversation I've had at length with people is everybody goes, God, I have some people that literally just freak out when I say affordable housing and ICF. They just think that's like the complete wrong direction for us to go. I mean, people I know within the industry, people I respect, will come to me and pull me aside and go, "Man, you get me hair on the back of my neck stands up when you talk about affordable housing and ICF, because I just don't think that's even feasible." And I said, "Well, I think you're looking at this from a different aspect. I'm not just looking at building a shell and walking away from it, because I have been involved with a lot of, these, homes that we go in and help people build and build it up. And Habitat Humanity is a good example. I mean, that's a great program, does a lot of great things, but I can tell you from working with them and other organizations like that, a lot of those homes end up getting lost by those people that move in, because of the fact that they were in a bad situation when they got there. And then you put them in a situation they can't afford to sustain, to operate the house. So, a good example would be in Arizona. This happens quite a bit because they build someone a free house, but then the utility costs are $1,000 a month to keep the house, under 75 degrees. Because it's 120, and they can't afford that. It's not in perpetuity for the rest of their life. They've got to keep operating this house. And so if we can build them a house at a very close to, and I fight, about we can build this for the same price, because Heather and I have done it for a lot of years. So I will tell you, yes, you can. If you tell me you can't, I think you're not looking at it right. But even if we say it gets close, the operational cost is more detrimental to that customer over the next 30 years than whatever the little bit of an amount that might change the build cost. So that's one of those things where I agree with you 100%. And the interesting thing is back in like 2005 or 8, I'd have to look back, the largest full ICF subdivision in the country, and I don't know if it's been beat. There's 115 houses built in Sacramento. So it's legitimately like, you guys figured that out a long time ago down there, that this is like, you should build, and they weren't mansions. It was just affordable houses that they built. So it's been done, and it needs to continue to be done. And I think the one thing that we're missing the boat on is people are looking at build costs and not looking at operational costs. And to back again to another one of your points, the hotel thing, go back and listen to our episode with Gary Fetters came on and talked about them. The ICF specialist built two. Well, they didn't. They built the ICF one, but at the same time, it was, I believe, a Hilton Garden or in Hampton Inn. It was a Hilton property. They built two identical in Arizona within 20 miles of each other, and then compared the operational cost to it. And he goes on there, and I can't remember exactly the quotes, but the numbers were ridiculous. And that's when Hilton made the big switch and said, we're not building any more, stick frame, buildings where we have access to ICF. And so where they've got people that can build ICF, they always go to ICF now for hotels because of the operational costs. So if that works for a huge company that's got all these rooms and stuff they're doing, you can imagine what that would do for Joe homeowner that, is trying to heat and cool their 1,500 square foot house. So I think you're hit the nail on the head on a lot of those. So I think all this stuff is amazing and you're dead on with. And I think Heather and I have seen more and more lately, just getting more involved politically, that you're barking up the right tree, being involved with, some of your legislators at the state level. I know Heather and I are very involved, and we've slowly figured out that, you're kind of trying to eat an elephant if you're going to go up and try to, walk up and talk to President Trump about something, but you can make a change when you go and talk to your city councilman or your county commissioners or your state legislators. So the fact that you're getting in front of those people and getting the word out is huge. And anyone listening that has the ear of a local politician that can help us, a local legislator in your area, that's a big person to be talking to, because a lot of this stuff happens at the ground level. I know Heather's seen a lot of that with California. I mean, you can talk to how, the design stuff that they changed almost immediately after the Palisades fires so that they could get blueprints done faster. I mean, that was all done like that. So it's...
a couple of the jurisdictions changed it to where it doesn't require an architect. It just requires, which they all required an architect with full engineering. Now they are not requiring the architect, they're requiring a draftsman. It could be a draftsman or an architect, still full engineering. So just a lot faster, a lot more affordable in many cases to use a drafting firm over, going to an architect to do your plans. And, not to mention, turnaround times and all that kind of stuff for fairly simple, projects. So.
Well, that's a huge part of the affordability that gets overlooked. I mean, we own a drafting company, so we know, but, and we love our architects out there, and architects are worth every penny when you're doing what they're doing, because they do some amazing work. And if you're building a 20,000 square foot house or a commercial building, it's absolutely something needed. But if you're building a 1,500 square foot affordable house, you can take that plan, and instead of paying $30,000, you can put $6,000 or $8,000 into a plan. That's immediate $20,000 that you're putting in the pocket of the person buying that house. I mean, think about what an extra $20,000, on the down payment would do for them, or what $20,000 would do to go towards, their appliances and all the other stuff. So just right out the gate telling them that they're going to save them, $20,000 by changing to a draftsman from a architect. And I've quoted this a million times on this podcast, but 85% of the plans drawn in the United States are drawn by draftsmen, not architects. So everyone thinks someone that draws blueprints is an architect. That's not accurate. There's architects and there's draftsmen, and the draftsmen do the majority of plans in residential are drawn by draftsmen, not architects. And so but anyways, that's just one step that I believe got done by dealing with local jurisdictions and telling them, hey, this is something that could help. Because I will say this, a lot of people don't have a lot of great things to say about legislators and politicians. I will say this, because we've worked with a lot of them. They're good and bad out there, don't get me wrong, and I can go either way on that. But I will say this, I have seen through the NHB at a national level, through the IHBA in Idaho at the Idaho level, and at our local, in our county that we live in, I've had more politicians and legislators and people come to us in the last few years and say, what can we do to bring the cost of housing down? They legitimately are concerned about this. We just passed at the national level a housing bill that was one of the most bipartisan bills to pass in 20 something years. I mean, it was 350 to 12 or something. It was like, it was crazy bipartisan bill, like that was completely, they passed it because everyone is behind affordable housing and trying to get this down. Now, the president in protest decided not to sign that, but that's another story I'm not too thrilled about. But it's went through July 1st and everything's good. We're moving forward with it. But like, I gotta believe that ICF plays a role in this. And I think, Michael, you've seen that maybe more so than anybody. And I'm stoked to hear that you're pushing it from that aspect, because we're going to be at PCB. All three of us will be at PCBC next week. And we're going to be meeting up with Grace from Home Res, and we're going to be actually in her booth 218, I believe. I can double check it. I'll put it in the show notes. I believe it's 218. We're going to be there on Wednesday at PCBC talking about the way we do, how we can get some resilient houses and still make them affordable, and what ICF can do to play into that. So we're going to have some good conversation there. We'll be part of a panel on that. I know, Michael, you've got your people coming down. We're going to film some content that I think everyone will have access to. I'll put links to all of that in our show notes as well. But a lot of cool things. So, Heather, do you have your notes on our 3 questions with you, or do you need me to do that?
I do not. You have them there. I did not grab those when I left the office yesterday. But before we switch to those, I know, Michael, you have a training coming up as well. We're going to put it on the WICFA calendar. But do you want to throw out the information on that right now and give us a little info on it?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for this. Trevor, as you were saying, education is the biggest piece. So when I came on board at Castle House, the owners, one of the things they shared with me was they believe ICF is the future, and they have, one of them is an ICF specialist. The other 3 are not. And they asked me to start putting together a workshop. I might have misunderstood them, because 3 weeks later, when they came back and asked me what my thoughts were, I said, well, I'd booked the venue, I've already got the speaker lineup. The registrations will go live on Monday. And they were very happy with it. So I think they realize that I will just put the pedal down and make it happen. So coming up in September 18th, we put this together. Primarily, the first invites all went out to municipalities, architects, and engineering firms. So these are not people that are going to be buying product. This was not a sales focus. This was purely trying to educate from the design to the permitting side, so that as we do build projects, the process gets simpler. People are more aware. They're familiar with it. And to that note, the speaker lineup reflects that. We have, in the morning session, NRMCA is going to be speaking on concrete resiliency, sustainability. That's Brandon Ray, great guy. I've done a lot of work with him. And then Brian Bordier with Nadura is going to be speaking on the material. And you were talking DoD work earlier. I think that was Heather. He's got a great section of his presentation that covers the explosion tests. And it's impressive. The hurricanes tests, all that. I love his material. I've watched him present before. Mid-morning, we've got a structural engineer speaking on design. And then we've got John Childs with 10X Construction, who builds an ICF, speaking on the construction side. After lunch is Mercury speaking on why they will insure ICF and sharing their viewpoints on it. Following them is U.S. Bank Home Mortgage on the impact insurance rates has on buying power. And if you're saving $4,800, that frees up $400 a month toward buying power. So it allows people to qualify for homes they might not have been able to qualify for, through the bank system. And then closing it out is Frank Gordon with Build Block. He's going to be speaking on schools, fire stations, and police stations. That's one of his specialties. A great guy. And that's, one of the things to highlight with the workshop is it's free. We are offering 3 LUs for architects, because 3 of the presentations are AAA approved. And for structural engineers, any self-reporting engineers, 4 CEUs. We have IntegraSpecs coming, even though they're not speaking, they're going to be there. I believe one of the Fox distributors is going to be there. This is an industry-focused event. It's not, a product. It's a solution.
And like so bipartisan. We were just talking about bipartisan. Yes. This is a very bipartisan ICF meeting.
It is. And one thing I'll say, so the ICF industry for years, I always viewed it as it hamstrung itself because everybody competed so hard. It was very common to hear my block is better than theirs because theirs doesn't do this, so on. And it just, it was frustrating to not see the unity. And one thing I love with the WICFA coming in and with the ICFMA being a part of it is I've seen that slowly start changing. And I in the last 6 months, I've seen that on steroids in California. One of the sites that I take people to is an IntegraSpec site. I work with Nicholas with IntegraSpec, and I take our people to his site. It's not about selling a block, a manufacturer. It's about selling the solution so that people can see if this is a problem. I've used BuildBlock sites, I've used FoxBlock sites, and nobody has a problem with me taking people over, even knowing that's my, potential client. They're probably going to end up buying block from me. It doesn't matter. The more exposure that we're all working together, the better it is. And so I'm really seeing some change in the industry. And you guys coming along right now is perfect timing because that's really highlighting the unity. You got the manufacturers to get on board with this. And I really do think this industry is poised to have a new problem. And that problem is going to be keeping up with the demand. We're going to have to train builders, designers, municipalities. And so this workshop, if it's successful, which already it's looking to be, the ownership wants to continue doing them, maybe do Southern California, possibly do one, in Arizona at some point, but to continue doing education. And so, to that point, I targeted municipalities. I've been very fortunate to have an incredible network. And my wife and I, it's sort of a running joke. I tell her, maybe I'm not aiming high enough because everything I'm shooting for just seems to be working right now. timing and network, knowing the right people. I'm now doing a lunch and learn for what is out here. It's called the SVBOA, Sacramento Valley Building Official Association. So all the building officials for the municipalities, some of them are registering their people for this event, and they've asked me for their membership to come do a lunch and learn on ICF. Everything's just been falling in place that I even started emailing the media outlets, Channel 3, Channel 40, Channel 10,
Absolutely,
to see if I can get an interview done at the workshop. I don't expect, to me, that one, I have no expectation that that's going to come through, but I figure everything else keeps falling in place. Why not? Just shoot for the stars and hope for the best. I don't mind being told no or even being ignored. So I'm going to keep pushing. So that workshop is a first for us. I'm really excited about it, and I'm hoping that the turnout and the benefits are incredible. I will highlight one thing. I've shifted gears a little bit with the workshop is there are a few builders that have been invited because we're going to need more builders. And then on top of that, a recent connection is a real estate agent that sells lots, that his specialty is bare land. Whether, it's new acreage, it was subdivided and now they can sell, acre lots here and there, or, as we expand where new subdivisions are going in that are going to be custom, he sells, lots specifically, but he used to specialize in the foothill market and pulled out of it for insurance reasons. Well, he's now coming to the workshop and he might bring a few of his people that are either potential buyers and also potential builders, because I think we have just provided a solution for them that opens that market back up to people being able to build back in the areas they want to, in nature, so on. And so I am now starting to put a little energy into the real estate side as well, because they need the education to know that solution is out there.
That's so good. There's so much truth to that like all of these aspects need to be educated on this. But I have several leads that we get from real estate agents. I mean, that's actually a very common thing for us, especially up here in the mountains, because we got people moving up here and they're building second homes, and their big concern is fire and different things. So the fact that, having those connections and having those different people in there it's super smart. So yeah, I think this is going to be really good. I will be there and I've got it marked on my calendar. So I'll be down there. We're trying to figure out if we can peel Heather away or not. We got she has a bridal shower, a
Wedding reception.
reception for our oldest daughter that next day. So it's going to depend on if that's going to stress our daughter out if mom's not there or not, or if we can sneak away for the day and fly down and fly back. But we're going to I will be there for sure, because they don't want me at the reception.
We want you at the reception. We don't need you at setup. If I can get out of setup, then I can be at this event.
True.
Heather, let me be clear. family first, always. I'm
Yeah.
a big
Oh, yeah.
believer in that. So I completely understand. But the next time you and Trevor find yourselves out in Northern California, I don't care if it's Bay Area, anywhere in Northern California, give me a heads up, and Grace and I will get together with you guys, take you out to dinner.
100%. Yeah, we would love that. That'd be great. So, yeah, I think we're real excited about all these different things going on, and in California especially. I mean, we've got a lot of going on down there with with your event and PCBC and all these different things going on. So I just think that back to what I said earlier, sometimes it takes kind of a bad or tragic event to get people really going in a direction that is going to be helpful to everybody. And I feel like we're there with California right now. It's really just the top of mind with everybody. So working on a lot of different ways to do that. But real quick here, let's I'm going to kick you over into some questions. So we ask 3 questions of every listener or every guest on here to talk to for our listeners. First being a memorable experience. What would you say in ICF related memorable experience? You already mentioned one earlier, so you kind of already did that. But if there's another one, or if that's your most memorable, but what's a memorable experience that you think of when you think of ICF?
Obviously the first one is just my wife's reaction.
Yeah.
Because that's personal, and for my wife to get to experience it. She hears about it all the time. She's been at conferences where I've spoken, but for her to actually go out and get to experience it, and to see, even though she has seen the presentations, she knows the information, but watching how it impacted her, her reaction to actually touching, feeling, seeing a finished product, that moment that made me realize everybody needs the hands-on. Everybody needs to do a site visit. They need to realize, because no amount of education is going to give the real picture. Until you stand inside an ICF home, you just don't get it. And so that was the biggest one. But I will say, I loved the 7,000 square foot home in Santa Rosa when I toured it, because it's a couple my age, maybe just a few years older than me, that are both musicians.
Hmm.
And they each have their own sound studio at opposite ends of the house. And so the house is set up beautifully. It's set up to entertain. They actually have a venue in the basement that is set up as a concert hall. It's got a high ceiling, all this kind of stuff. It's a gorgeous home, but how custom made it was to their particular needs, so that they could both continue to pursue their passion and yet live under the same roof. And so touring that home, they did so many very unique things that each of them highlighted, this was important to me, this was important to her. They each highlighted what mattered and how it all came together. That was a great experience.
That's pretty
That's
cool. Do you remember the second one, Heather?
No, I should, after doing these
I
this
know you
long.
do these all the time.
No. It's been a
Well,
busy morning.
What are
I don't remember the second one. Just so you know.
okay? Well, good. I did. You haven't read it 73 times like Heather has, but now she can tell you her credit card numbers, which is weird. But the
Well,
so
hold on. She has a master's in accounting. She's good with numbers. That's
Right.
not surprising.
Yeah, she's not an English major, so we'll give her that.
Right.
But no, the second question is what? I mean, I know this is a really loaded question for you, because you could probably do 30 minutes on just this, but pick one. What are you excited about in the future? What's something that you haven't maybe mentioned already? I mean, obviously you've got a lot of passion and a lot of excitement for ICF. So I mean, you've probably got a ton of things you're excited about, but is there anything, whether it be a product or a new concept or anything that you looking forward that you think is just going to be really cool in the future of ICF?
This pertains to California. And yes, there is one thing, and it's the potential is there. And that is, to me, the home run would be building complete housing divisions out of ICF, because then we don't have to wait for a tragedy and build back from a lesson, learned kind of thing. And right now, I was at a BIA event here in California, North State. It's a builders association for homeowners, or for home builders. So all the big home builders are plugged into this. In fact, they're most of them are going to be at PCBC as well. I met with the president after one of the workshops and had a conversation with him, and he shared with me that some home divisions or housing developments were in planning and have been paused because they're now in what's classified as a high risk fire zone, and they're struggling with insurance. That creates the opportunity. So now I have a site visit with them, with the government affairs team and their executive team, in August, doing a site visit for ICF. And then hopefully we'll get the opportunity to speak with some of these builders that have, developments that are on pause, and see if we can get one of them to look at designing the homes in ICF, take whatever, floor plans they currently have and convert them to ICF, give them some numbers, price it out, and see if we can truly start building some developments in ICF from day one. To me, that's something I'm really excited about because the potential's there. I mean, it's sort of been a dream, but now the need is there. The opportunity is present, and now we just have to capitalize on it. So that's another one of the ones that we're chasing right now, and I'm super excited because if we actually get a development, 100 plus homes somewhere going in an ICF, I guarantee you I will be talking to news channels until they get tired of hearing from me. I'll be talking to everybody about it because, we have to show the progress we're making and how successful this can be. So that's, I won't take 30 minutes, but I'll definitely take that 8 or 9 minutes there.
I agree 100%. And it's one of those where you got to take away the fuel. And I think that probably one of the positive things that did come out of the Palisades fire was an eye-opening experience for people to kind of finally visualize what we've been saying, which is it's not the trees, it's not the grass, it's not the the brush around that. You can rake all you want around your house, but if your house is built out of firewood, it's going to catch on fire and it's going to catch the house next to it on fire. So you can have all of the things you want to do, but if your neighbor's house catches on fire and the winds are blowing 50 to 60 miles an hour and the flames are 28 feet tall and your house is only 6 feet away from your neighbor's house, that's a blowtorch blowing on your house and it's going to catch your house and that's going to catch the next house. So we're just feeding fuel. We're feeding the fire by what we're building. And I think that's what people are finally figuring out when you look at pictures of Malibu and you've got the Pacific Coast Highway on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other, and they all burn to the ground. It's like, well, they didn't burn down because of the trees around them. They didn't burn down because of brush and fire. They burned down because the house next to them caught them on fire. So that's a huge thing. So I 100% agree with you.
Well, Trevor, just to highlight that, when I was speaking at UCLA at the ICF symposium, I used the phrase, why are we putting fuel in the path of a future fire? And there was a retired fire chief. She stood up when we allowed comments. She stood up and she shared that when they are looking to fight a fire, they have to make tough decisions. And usually we've got, 30 homes here where the fire is already encroaching. We're not going to be able to stop it. So we've got to go to where the first break is. And so we're writing off those homes.
Mm-hmm.
We know we can't make a defense by trying to save, these 20 homes. We can make a defense and try to save these next 100 homes. And she was highlighting that. And she said, if you had a block, just one block built out of ICF, we now know we have a defensible spot that we can start in and stage in and in safety. And now we can plan, how do we attack the fire?
Yeah.
And so it really highlights that it's not just your house, like you're talking about. It's your community. It's just enough ICF houses in general can put enough breathing room
100%.
Without adding fuel that can make a huge difference.
And I think, and I think one of the things that I do recall, and I won't put this out as fact, but I think I remember the builder who did those 100 and something homes down there. The second subdivision he couldn't convince the developer or whatever to go with an all ICF subdivision, but what they did convince them to do was to do the perimeter, all the perimeter houses of this major subdivision. So I think they did 50 houses on the outside that were all ICF, and then built another couple hundred stick frame houses inside of that, and almost treated it like a moat or a wall, of the castle, essentially keeping everybody out, so keeping the fire out. So that's another way to do it. And we've seen it. I mean, you can look at that Mexico City or the Mexico Beach hurricane photo, the famous, the most recent famous photo of an ICF house where the entire hurricane took the entire coastline down, and there's one white house up on stilts sitting there, and it's an ICF house. And the funny part is the house right behind it survived because it was just in the line of fire, and it actually was shielded by the ICF house. So there was actually two houses that survived. One was an ICF, and then the one that was right behind was lucky enough to be built right behind it, was protected. So yeah, that's a big thing.
It's so funny. I've used that picture in presentations. Turns out, and I don't know this for a fact, but Brian was sharing with me that was an Endura house. So
it is. Yep.
They use that all the time because it's a great selling point.
Yep. I agree. I do know that's true.
this developer that you're meeting with on that, if affordability and insurance is a thing, it just took that land that he purchased and made it, like, worthless if they can't build.
Absolutely.
And now here's this solution that doesn't have to cost more money to do, but now it allows them to develop that community. It's a no-brainer.
Well, and so one thing, I know we're in the questions, but just to highlight, California also has Title 24 requirements for energy efficiency.
Mhm.
One of the downsides to that is the most affordable way to do that is with vinyl windows. And if you are a homeowner, you know vinyl windows have a shelf life.
Mhm.
They have heat cycles they go through, they warp, they can take sun damage, so on. The old aluminum, some people really like that clean look, but they're horrible on heat transfer, so you can't use them and qualify for Title 24. But if you build an ICF, you're qualifying for Title 24. You can use aluminum windows. So from a home builder standpoint, it opens up your options of the materials you can use, so you can look for affordable options that maybe you couldn't use previously.
Mhm. Yeah, there's just amazing things that people don't realize. Just the around the ICF thing that all of a sudden expands to these other things, whether that be different codes. And I've always said it for years. I'm like, we all know codes are going to change. We're always, we fight some. Sometimes we're looking for some. In Idaho, we're actually trying to get our code up a little bit in certain areas because we don't qualify for some of the HUD money and stuff if we don't do it. So codes are always going to be in the debate. One thing, you can take code debate off the table for 20 years for you if you just move to ICF. Like, I mean, ICF jumps 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I don't even know how far ahead yet, but I mean, it definitely jumps you a good 20 to 30 years ahead of any codes or anything by just going to ICF. So that is the same thing. Like you're talking about Title 24, it's the same thing in every state. Everyone's got some version of that you're going to get ahead of by doing ICF. So that's a huge part of it. But so your final question is why Castle House? Why would somebody's looking to do an ICF house? We'll even specify ICF specific, and they're looking for somebody to work with. Why they come in and see you guys? Give us your pitch.
Well, I can highlight that one, we definitely have a passion for ICF. And
So yeah, you've proven that.
we'll go the extra mile. I can already say that in the short time I've been there, reaching out to clients, offering to do site visits, offering to do education. We do little things like we have a 12-page informational that we'll send out that's just ICF 101, because we know education is one of the biggest things. And we see all sorts of issues like people will have a house design and stick. They'll send it to us. We'll do a takeoff and give them, hey, this is what the block would cost you to do it in ICF. And they get all excited that they're going to do it in ICF, and they go pull permits, not realizing they pulled permits in a stick build. They never had their plans redone, and now they can't build an ICF. And so, we do everything up front to try to educate and try to prepare you so that you avoid some of those pitfalls. And then the side note to that is, under the ownership team they have the construction company, 10X Construction, is the other side of the house, and they build ICF. Now, the guy who really leads that is John Childs, has, 20 plus years of experience with ICF, and they do incredible work. And I've never heard John say no. He's joined me at coffee houses to meet with potential ICF, clients, and they're curious to get some budget numbers. And the guy works so hard and puts in so many hours and just does an incredible job. He is great to work with, and he's got a lot of experience with, he's done a lot of work, both commercial and residential. That Coachella house is his baby. Bo's the foreman, but John is sort of leading that. That thing's got a 27-foot diameter atrium that goes from the basement all the way through the roof. And, I went down there and I've seen a lot of radiuses done in ICF. They literally, all the blocks as they're cut are marked with 7/8, whatever the measurement is because it has 6 different radiuses on this home. And it's all labeled, everything's structured. They're just so organized. And we actually took a second client that's doing a 24,000 square foot high-end home to that site. And he came back and said, okay, here's my plans already done in ICF, but can you modify it? There was things I didn't know you could do that I saw you guys do. And that's just the quality of work that I think the whole package we can provide. So from the Castle House side, you're going to get the knowledge, the education, the support. We'll go the extra mile, no question. And then on the construction side, you're going to get a team that does quality work with tons of experience. and does a lot of things that people don't even realize you can do. So it's a complete package. And that's why I'm thrilled to be a part of the team. I'm grateful for the opportunity they gave me, and they've put so much trust and faith in me that it makes me want to work even harder to drive this home.
That's awesome. And that's great. And I will put all your contact information, everything in the show notes. So everybody's going to have a link to that. We're going to be putting this up on our social medias and everything. And we're going to connect them up with your social medias, because that's how I've been following along and seeing this Coachella house and stuff. And you want to see some cool stuff. I mean, follow along and listen. Now you've heard, Michael talk about it. Now you can follow along with the whole construction on social media with you guys through that. So that's super cool. Great episode. This was so much good information and so topical for right now. I mean, that's what I love, is when we hit an episode that's super topical and it's just right at the top of everybody's mind. And I think what's going on in California and all these different things that we're trying to do with resilient home building and affordable housing. And we've hit all the buzzwords, all the bingo card words here. So that's been good. So remind everybody, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, Heather, Trevor, thank you for having me on. Totally appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you both next week.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. And like I said, I tell Grace hello for us, and that we're really sorry that she's not going to make it down there, but we look forward to getting together and grabbing a ribeye and some red wine with you guys. So going to give our little plug here for the World Insulated Concrete Form Association. I'm just go right roll right into the line, but it's,
I knew about it, but you remembered.
I did remember. I pulled the sheet over here. The ICF industry finally has a unified voice. The World Insulated Concrete Form Association, or WICFA as we love to call it, has launched to support the advocacy, education, and industry growth. Be a part of it. You can join right now. Go to wicfa.org. If you're a builder, manufacturer, engineer, distributor, industry professional who believes in building stronger, more resilient structures, just like Michael does, this is for you. That's why he's a member. You can go to wicfa.org or buildwithicf.com, either one, and you can click on the join now and get signed up. And we're getting I'm excited. I want 1 million members, but we're getting closer by the day. It was just super cool to be like, we were up camping this weekend, or up at our cabin, our family cabin that we've had this since 1950s, and doing a lot of staining and things to it and fixing it up. But we do have our Starlink up there, and we try to disconnect a little bit, but we were able to get emails and stuff. And I sitting up there staining my cabin, and all of a sudden we're seeing, hey, did you see so and so signed up? And we got another member signed up, and we're getting the emails. So it's really cool. We appreciate everybody out there spreading the word, but we need them to. And we've got some podcast dogs there at Heather's. She mutes.
We are a pet-friendly drafting company, and so we've got
a lot. We always have dogs around. We're a pet-friendly podcast, but I think super excited to everybody. What we see is basically a huge surge when everybody puts it out on their social medias and mentions to people, "Hey, I'm a WICFA member. You should be a WICFA member," and that's all we're asking for people to get involved in. And what we've talked about today is an example of, people are asking, what are we doing as WICFA, and what are we doing for the members? And PCBC is a great example. We're getting on a plane. We're going down there. We will be meeting with people. We're going to be spreading the word. We're speaking. We will be also down there on a media pass. We're actually representing the ICF Builder magazine. We will be doing an article about PCBC and our experiences down there through that. So we'll be interviewing some of the keynote speakers and people that we're working with. I do want to give a shout out to the ICF Builder magazine. If you have not got another little add-on, when you become a WICFA member, you get a free membership to the ICF Builder magazine. So you'll start getting that as soon as you sign up as a member. But if you haven't checked it out, this month is the ICF product directory, which I think is probably the most important edition that they send out. So the July-August edition is the ICF product directory. I'm a little partial because we did get quite a few shout outs in this magazine, as well as WICFA. They talked about us a few times in here. So thank you to them for doing that. But we'll be writing some articles and putting some stuff out regarding what we're doing. But we've got other things lined up. We mentioned on the last podcast, but we'll be going out in October to Concrete Works, and we've got the World of Concrete, which we've got our booth locked down on that. So we will have our booth right there in the around with all the other ICF guys at WICFA. We'll have our own booth there, and we're working on putting together our live GMM at IBS and getting our booth going there, or our live GMM at World of Concrete, but getting our booth at IBS as well. And I will just shout out to everybody that attended our first ever virtual GMM that we did last week. That was super cool. Heather pulled it off from a technical standpoint. Everything went off without a hitch. I was curious if we would get there, but everything went off well. It's available to all of our WICFA members. If you missed it, you can actually go download it and watch it online as well. Anything else, Heather, you're thinking of that I didn't mention here?
If any of our listeners, WICFA members or not, if you are going to be at PCBC, please reach out. Trevor mentioned we will be in booth, did you say 218?
218, yeah.
But you can also email us, info@buildwithicf. We'd love to meet up with our members and potential members for WICFA and chat everything ICF. And then also you're going to be at Michael's training in September. So,
yep.
Yeah. So our calendar is getting full. I am looking at adding on our website a page to be able to request that we come to your event. So we're looking at some website updates. But yeah, just lots of stuff going on. Very exciting. Yes, our GMM was great. You can go and watch the recording in the info hub in the community. So just excited with everything that we have going on. This was really cool today. I'm excited to meet you next week, Michael. Tell your wife that I look forward to meeting her. I'm sorry she's not coming to San Diego. I originally was not going to San Diego and bought a ticket just last week as we were headed to the family cabin. So I had serious FOMO going on after talking with Grace from, I can't remember. HomeRes. Yeah. So very excited and just want to thank everybody for all their support at WICFA. And yeah, if you have any questions, reach out. We do have the email address for anybody having like difficulties with jurisdictions or I guess even engineering, any issues that you're seeing with
technical issues, political issues, legislative issues, stuff like that.
Yeah, we have the email address help, HELP, at buildwithicf.com. So that one is like a highlighted one. So anytime we get an email there, we get a special notification so that we can jump on those issues right away. So just wanted to remind that.
Wow, that was loud. And God, a lot of technical difficulties on this one. Bear with us, people. We're keeping it real here. So this is the redneck version today because I've got all kinds of different noises and dogs and things going on. But I apologize. I'll try to clean it up as much as I can, but that's what keeps us real and grounded here. Yeah, I would say just reach out at Build with ICF on all the social medias. Reach out and give us an email at info@buildwithicf. We're always looking for ideas. Give us people you'd like to have us come on for guests or information. We always do our listener question stuff. So if you do have we have another one of those coming up. So if you've got some questions you want to put out there, please send them in to us. We're happy to do that. Again, I keep saying this because I keep getting caught on some things. There's so many different podcast platforms. If you guys have if you do have a question for me, just shoot directly to the info email or through social media because sometimes these podcast ones, I don't get the notifications. And so I find 2 months later a question through some obscure podcast platform that somebody listened on. So please get hold of me. If you don't hear back from me right away, get on me. I've got a lot of different irons in the fire. And so sometimes I'm not good at answering back right away. Just bug me any way you want to, and I'm happy to chat. So other than that, I think that is about it. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. We did a good job of bumping this thing up over an hour. So we had good, we know we've got good information and good guests when we can do over an hour and not be bored and trying to get out of here. So, and we could probably do another hour, to be honest. We might have to do another one with you, Michael. This might just be episode 1 for you. And then we'll do Michael part 2, but thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on here, and hang tight. We'll talk here after we get off the podcast. I got a few more things we'll talk about for next week, but as for our listeners, thank you everybody for listening. You guys kill it. You guys continue to be why we do this. What's that?
I said,
or if you're we're gonna play with it again. We did our first video one last week and put it on YouTube. I'm gonna play with this one and see if I can make it work again, and we'll see. So I'd love to everybody to see Michael's smiling face, and we can get on there. But I'll try that too. So if you're watching, hello. But thank you everybody. We really appreciate everything that you do for us, and we'll continue to get more of these out here. We got a couple of good ones coming up that I know for a fact Heather and I are going to record one that we've been wanting to get to for a while regarding kind of more back to our DIY pitfalls and stuff, but any contractor things you need to know about building, some of the things that can happen and what you should expect. So I think we even talked about making it DIY expectations, right? And keeping realistic expectations. So that's going to be probably one of our next episodes. So keep listening for that. But anyways, thank you everybody. And we will see you on the next one.